here's the rough thing, is they have to be dead. Otherwise, you can't be sure.
Exactly,
Like, the only way your collection really works is if the creator's dead.
Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 27 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasenowski, and I am the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire. Today we have some wonderful polls for you. We have Heartpiercer, number 1, a new from Dark Horse. We have the Displaced, number 3, Napalm Lullaby, number 3, the Gunhand, number 1, and Sinister Sons, number 4.
We'll be talking about all those in a little bit, but if you enjoy this episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Or you can find my personal socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, on to the news. So to start off this week, we're going to start by, I guess, undoing and then redoing a former news story, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And one that we talked about it recently a little bit. I texted you because I was like, oh, well, that happened. So we talked a little bit ago about Rob Liefeld retiring from Deadpool.
Yes.
I think less than 6 months ago. We've only been doing this like maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Maybe
and
a
then
month
I
ago.
messaged you, I think. Yeah, I messaged you, I think, like a week ago to be like, he's doing covers again. Here are some of the covers. And now coming from Games Radar, and I chose Games Radar's article of this because I love the article title they went with, which is Rob Liefeld promises he's retiring from Deadpool for real this time, but not before teaming up with some incredibly obscure Marvel characters. So basically, Rob Liefeld is returning for a new 5-issue series called Deadpool Team Up, but he promises after this one he's retiring for real.
Okay, Rob. Sure.
I think we mentioned that there was no way he was getting through the Deadpool Wolverine movie without cashing in with some Deadpool books.
And I think we had also
this
specifically said this man is going to continue doing Deadpool covers until he deads.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I don't think he considered the covers coming back from time because he didn't say anything about that until he was literally coming back for the series. So I don't think the covers are considered within the retirement.
Okay, Rob. I mean,
but I
good
felt
for
the
him.
need to talk about this.
Go get your bag, enjoy yourself. But, like, you know, if you hear that it's gonna be his last series, so you're like, I should buy it, I wouldn't. Buy it because you want to read it. It's not gonna be his last series.
Ugh.
Calling it now.
The fact, like I feel like that's like a thing in so many things. Like, it's the last thing to do. I feel like that never actually matters in comics. Like, I've never heard of like, this was the last time this person did something.
Right.
It was like the first ones, yeah. But, like the last one. Have you ever heard about like what like I need the last trying to think of a big name on like on a book that like I need the last Jack Kirby, insert Marvel character here. I've never heard of that. So
clearly that there's a market right there. Start collecting them and then start making a big deal about them.
Yeah,
because honestly, that's kind of hardcore. Now that you're saying that, I'm like,
honestly,
oh my God.
Yeah. But here's the rough thing, is they have to be dead. Otherwise, you can't be sure.
Exactly.
Like, the only way your collection really works is if the creator's dead. As morbid as that.
If we know it's the last.
Yeah. Listen, comic book creators are pretty notorious for, like, not, ever
stopping.
really closing the door on stuff. Yeah, like, they
no, there's a really
unless
sweet...
you're talking, you can probably get Todd McFarlane everything but Spawn, because, he
the
really
man's
doesn't go back.
Focused.
Yeah, but most other creators, I'm not buying that they're done.
No, there was a super sweet. You know how DC will do like the in memoriams for creators who died.
Yeah.
There was a really sweet one in the back of Sinister Sons this week, about Ramona Fraden. And it's like, until she was like 91, she was still drawing comics and working for DC, essentially.
Yeah, I saw a post about that. That's just absurd. Like, I think she literally did stuff like a few months, maybe not a few months, but like, within the last year, which is just crazy. So
And she was like
yeah,
90
Conquer-
something. So yeah, you can
creators
never
really
count
don't
on
retire.
they don't. And I
Like
mean,
their retirement is their
obviously
death,
Rose
which some people find morbid. I think that's kind of nice. I think that's kind of
I
nice.
do
Like not
too.
if they have to, but if they choose to. Like you're talking about the ones who just haven't made a dime and
Exactly.
need to keep doing it to like live. That's a little bit sad. But if we're talking about the creators who are pretty well, they've made it and they're just doing it because they want to, or they love it, or they're doing it
Yeah.
when they want to. Like I think that's nice. But
I
you
also
know,
think that's nice. But speaking of dead comic
let's
creators, Eisner's, because Will Eisner stuff. To be clear.
what a fucking transition. I did tell Katie we are going to be going over the Eisner nominees. We've talked a
Yes.
little bit about some of our favorite creators that got nominated for given things, but yeah, we haven't gone through them all in their entirety, which we're about to do. So if this segment takes a very long
A
time,
while.
I do apologize. Yeah. I think I'm going to ask you as we go to each one. Like I'm going to, because I know you've looked, but I don't think you remember everything.
I
Like if
actually
you,
haven't really
so I'm going
looked.
to. Okay, so I guess I've sent you a few things, but yeah. So I'm gonna ask you in each category like something that you think should be there, something that you would put in the
Ooh,
category
okay.
before I go through the
Oh,
nominations.
jeez.
So we're gonna
All
start
right.
with best short story. So essentially best anthology. Comic.
I mean, we both went bananas for that middle story in the April special. The
I
teacher
was hoping
chimp
that's what
one.
you were gonna bring up.
Like
Yeah. So
look,
that's
you
your that's
say short story, and that one just immediately
was that
pops by because it's so weirdly good. What?
was it actually? I don't know how the Eisners work. Like, is it just before, or is it through 2023? Like, did that come out in
Um.
2024?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess
But
I
I
don't
respect
know.
the the that being what you put in. So here's what we've got. We've got Friendship is Forever by Sam Maggs and Keisha Okafor, which is from the My Little Pony 40th celebration.
Sounds like it
We
would
have
be.
The Kelpie by Becky Cloonan in Four Gathered on a Christmas Eve by Dark Horse. We have, and this one is a little wild. The Lady of the Lake by Joe S. Farrar and Gurham Grandizola in Bump a Horror Anthology #3, which is that Kickstarter anthology that you know
Rad.
recently opened up submissions, and I think we talked about them opening up submissions. So clearly you can get an Eisner from that. So apply. Um, Talking to a Hill by Larry Hancock and Michael Cherkis in Comics for Ukraine, which was through Zoop, and World's Finest Part 1 by Tom King and Belen Ortega in Wonder Woman 3. So I'm going to throw it to you in a second. The only one of these that I have read is The Lady of the Lake from the Bump Horror Anthology. Have you read more than that? Have you read anything in here?
I have read none of them. um,
Okay, so we'll move on. I will say I think I've loved most of the Bump Horror stories, which by the way, the first 3 issues were all written by Joe S. Farrar. So 4 on is going to have people, that's the submissions we were talking about. But yeah, no, I think the Bump Horror Anthology has some awesome stories, and yeah, I thought it was really cool to see that nominated. But we'll keep
Rad.
rolling along since we don't have much
Yeah.
context for that one into stuff that maybe some more hopefully that we have read. So next up we have best single issue / one shot.
I know it's in here.
Do you want to throw out something that you would put here, or do you want to
I
just?
mean, I know it's in there because Tom Taylor posted all the categories that he was in. It's like, what is it? 107 is the first person
105
perspective. 105?
105
First person perspective Nightwing issue. Oh my god! I mean, here's the thing: the story of it, very wonderful. Like it's cute, it's fun. It was very much a one shot within the arc of, whichever volume it was. The concept and execution of this issue, so insane, so insanely well done. All right. I'm gonna get on my Bruno Redondo fangirl shit again. The continuous shot issue, phenomenal. This first person perspective issue, phenomenal. Just the way that these two goobers have been like experimenting with comics format in these like very strange ways where it's like not even experimental, it's almost gimmicky, but it works so well and they're so well done that it never feels cheap or like they just threw it together. It's so meticulously planned. I If it doesn't win, I'm gonna cry.
The
That's
funny
not
thing is, I
true,
feel like we
but
had this exact conversation. Obviously, not on the podcast because it didn't exist. But I feel like we had this exact
right.
conversation last year about the nominations for
Exactly, because
Nightwing.
that's when
Where it's
was it
like, yeah,
87 or whatever
yeah.
happened, and it's like, come on, it's so cool. I
But let
actually
me
don't know what
let me
else is
run
in the
through the
category though,
rest of them
so
here. Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I'll
Let
change
me
my
run through it
tune.
here. And then I'm very excited to get to the next category because I have to say something about it that I find very funny. But we have Horologist by Jared Lee and Cross from Grimm Film. Obviously, Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. Star Trek Day of Blood, Shax's Best Day by Ryan North and Derek Charm from IDW. The Superman 2023 Annual by Joshua Williamson and others. And Sweet Paprika, Black, White, and Pink by Mirka and Dalfo and others from Image. I have
What
not read
was
anything in this
I
category,
have not
so
read
I can't
Superman
really.
Annual. I've been
No, I
pulling the
haven't. I heard.
Superman books
I
since
think my
Dawn of
friend
DC,
Nate
but
literally
I've read
said to me
none of
like,
it.
even if you're not caught up, you got to read this annual, man. And I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I totally will. And then I didn't. So sorry, Nate.
I
Apparently, I
have
read
it
it.
literally in that
Um,
box right there. I will read it after this
I
because
have
that's
it.
such high praise.
It's sitting. I don't even think it's made it into a short, but I think it's sitting in one of the piles on my desk because
I literally
I'm bad
just
at
organized
putting
all my
stuff.
comics yesterday, which is why
I
everything
need
has a
to.
place now.
I'm going to, I think, either like next week or the following week. But anyway, best
There you go.
continuing series. Um,
Yes.
Before we even get here, I have to make the comment of who's DC paying off to get 4 out of 5 of best continuing series. Um,
Oh, jeez.
Maybe just the fact that
I
DC is one of the
mean,
only
I
publishers
was.
that has continuing series.
That's what I was gonna say.
um, so this first one, like it's just interesting because you and me both read the first issue and went, nope, not gonna read this series. So it's interesting that it made it here. Maybe we should have given it more of a try. But the first one is Birds of Prey by Kelly Thompson and Leonardo
Here's the thing.
Basto Romero.
I have heard such phenomenal things about this book, and
Yeah,
it's
we
because we
gave up
read
after issue one.
the first issue together, and we were both like, "Oh, I'm not
Yeah,
really feeling it. I'm not really feeling it. Let's not keep
yeah,
talking about it."
yeah,
And every single review I've heard of it has been like, "This series is great. This series is wonderful." And I'm like,
yeah,
"I
yeah,
what? I didn't
yeah.
particularly like the
Apparently, we
first
should have given it more
issue."
than an issue's chance. But yeah, I guess that's on
Maybe
us.
we'll do it for a back issue at some point.
Yeah, maybe
We'll
we
read the
will.
first
So
volume.
anyway, of course, we have Nightwing by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo up there as well. First one in a while that I've actually read, but I have not read in a while, is Shazam by Mark Waid and Dan Mora,
Mm.
which has been good, at least through as far as I have read it. Then, of course, we have Transformers by Daniel Warren Johnson, which
Square up,
I heard
boy.
excellent.
Nightwing versus
Yeah, yeah.
Transformers.
And then we have Wonder Woman by Tom King and Daniel Sampier.
Which I started reading, and that is it's pretty damn good.
You
Like
said good
I'm a
things. You
couple
said,
of behind, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, all good. I will say I am super behind on Nightwing right now, just because I get it from the store that I don't go to as often. So I cannot. Though I guess 2023 that might have been the leap, not leaping into the light, obviously, but the leap. So it's still very good. And oh, I don't know, because the thing is, Transformers is we talked at length during our last Transformers review. It's very good. It's just not.
It is.
I just don't like Transformers. I think that Transformers is just not the IP for me.
Which is fair.
And they're both. Oh my goodness. Because I don't feel as attached to Wonder Woman because probably because I haven't been talking about it ad nauseum with you. Uh, Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, my hat is obviously in the Nightwing ring. Yours
Yeah,
is
I'm
Transformers, I would
obviously throwing it
assume.
for Transformers. I mean, we'll see if it happens again. I voted last year, so we'll see if I'm a voter again this
He's going to
year.
be the singular
Um,
tiebreaker.
yeah, yeah. No, like, and then like the thing is that I always feel bad, so I'm like, okay, now I need to read a bunch of the shit. So like right
Exactly,
before
yeah.
I voted last year, I read so many comic books, and we'll see if that happens again this year. But because my rule is I have to have like I have to, and you don't have to vote for every category, which I didn't, but I say
Right.
I have to read at least like over half of, because I think it's five
Hmm.
nominations, so it's like I have to read at least three out of the five nominations to like effectively cast a ballot, is in my head. Maybe
That's fair.
that's
Yeah.
not, but I feel like there's probably people who read less than that vote, so I feel a little bit better, having at least read
Hmm.
three out of five. But let's keep moving forward
Yes,
into what
yes.
I think. We'll see if this is a weird opinion. What I think in the modern comic landscape should really be like the main award, or like the biggest award, which is best limited
Limited
series,
series?
because right
Yeah.
now that's what
That's
comics
what
are.
everyone puts
Um,
out. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm sure you have something that you'd want here, because we've had so many limited series
I mean,
in 2020.
a little. I know a couple of them that are here, so I don't know that I can throw because I think World's Finest Teen Titans is in here, which
It is
is it
not.
not? It's not.
It
I'm
is
gonna
not.
throw World's Finest
It's
Teen
not.
Titans in there. Then I think that was phenomenal.
Interesting. I'm gonna throw In Hell We Fight there. Um,
Was that not 2 years
right, that
ago?
finished last year, didn't it? I feel like
Oh,
that
you
finished
might be
last
right.
year.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw In Hell We Fight here, because I think that was something that deserved a little bit of acclaim. But we have The Cull by Kelly Thompson and Matea del Lu Lis from Image. Godzilla Here There Be Dragons by Frank Terry and Inaki Miranda from IDW. Kill Your Darlings by Ethan S. Parker, Griffin Sheridan, and Robert Quinn from Image. Pee Pee Poo Poo by Carolyn Cash through Silver Sprocket. And then the lone DC under this one is actually Superman Lost by Christopher Priest and Carlo Pagolayan, which I think only had maybe one issue come out in 2023, or like two. Most of that series I think
Mhm.
was in 2022. I never finished it. I think I read like the first six, but there were like delays and shit, and I was
Mhm.
also just bad at keeping up on comics. But the amount I
So
read was good.
I think then timing wise, Hunger in the Dusk would not qualify, or would it? Because
I don't think
it
it's
finished
like I don't
in.
think it's eligible because it's not finished. It's six issues of, because I think
Oh
for
shit, you're right.
best
No, you're
limited
right. Yeah, yeah.
series you have to have finished because like I think that's why Superman Lost is here instead of being there the year before, because while
No, that
most of
makes
it was in
sense.
2022, it finished in 2023. So I think
Mhm.
for limited series it's when your book finishes.
No, that
I
fully
could be making that
tracks.
up, but I think that's how it works.
Yeah, I don't think I read any of those either. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like I said, the bit of Superman Lost I have read, very good.
Mhm.
So
No,
cool. But yeah,
you've gassed that up to me
yeah, yeah,
previously.
yeah. It's something that I, honestly, because it'll push me to finish it. Maybe we should do for something
Mhm.
on the podcast, because I do think it's a really, really cool
Well, I think
series.
that's a
Then
perfect
we have
time to say we're thinking about doing a bonus episode of reading
we
all
are.
of the books for one of the categories, and limited series feels like a doable
It feels like it makes
category.
the most sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But we'll
yeah.
take a gander.
Especially because, like, the only ones that even make sense are like we could do the best like one shots too, or like the best
The
anthologies.
single
But
issues, yeah.
like, and like the series kind of makes sense, but not really. And then like doing like best artist or best write makes no sense. Like how we're just
No,
gonna read
no, no.
everything that all of those people
We'll
did
just
in a
read the
year. Like,
entirety of their bibliography.
yeah. So next up we have best new series, which is I think always a really fun category. So I'm interested if you have
This
opinions
one
on
I'll throw
best
Hunger in the
new
Dusk in for.
series.
Do you think that would count in there? Right? It's a new
Yeah, that
series.
started in 2023, right?
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
started in 2023. I'm
Yes.
fairly certain.
I'm gonna throw
Um,
Hunger in the Dusk
no,
in there.
I think that's fair. I'm gonna throw out
Ooh.
ooh
You know
I
what
was
should
gonna
have been a
throw
limited
out,
series? When
yeah,
did Our
Zora,
Bones
right? Is
Dust
that where your
end?
head went?
No, Zora
What? Oh,
was
Our Bones Dust.
Zora
Our Bones
was I
Dust
think
totally
in
should have been limited
January.
series, but I think that finished this year, actually. So,
Shit. All of these just
and then
barely over the
Zora was
guts. We'll have a
technically a
really good
reprint.
Eisners next year.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Zora
because
technically
it,
was a
it
reprint,
went
so
out
I don't
through
think it's out.
Kickstarter or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we've had
Yeah,
so many
Hunger in the
best new
Dusk will
series, and
be
now I'm
my vote for this
now
one.
I'm struggling. But Hunger in the Dusk is definitely good. I just wanted to throw something else out.
Oh.
I'm shocked that oh, okay, wait, yeah, no, okay, no, that
Oh, he's
okay, never mind.
buffering.
Yeah, I am buffering. Listen, my trying to think of like the hard year to line is so year
Right?
line is so hard.
I'm not
You
even
know,
trying to consider it, frankly. I'm just
that's fair.
guessing.
So we have one I think Katie's going to be a fan of, "Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees" by Patrick Horvath through
Horror!
IDW. We have "Black Cloak" by Kelly Thompson and Meredith McLaren through Image.
Kelly Thompson
We have "Local
making
Man."
waves this year. Good old local man, Tim
Yeah.
Seeley.
We have "Local Man" by Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks through Image. And we have "Phantom Road" by Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Hernandez Walta through Image. And then, book I've heard a ton of good things about, we have "Somna, A Bedtime Story" by Becky Cloonan and Tula Latte through Distillery, which I think you picked up. I remember you picking that up at some point.
Aha! There it is.
Yeah.
All of
Have
my
you read it?
oversized ones are very accessible. I have not. Because the thing is, I kept hearing people say amazing things about it. And then people also kept saying, like, oh, it's so steamy and wonderful. And I'm like, I don't want to read it on, like, a Wednesday morning. I think it's important to consider the atmosphere in which you are in when you read things, which is why I read horror books during the day.
That's fair. And then I've read a couple things from Local Man, so I thought that the bit of that I've read is cool. But we are
I've been
to dive
traumatized
much
by
deeper into that.
Yes, yeah, we're hoping to do a Local Man back issue soon. But
yes, we are.
The only context I have for Local Man is a traumatic series of images Tim Seeley posted on his Instagram of like someone sending a picture of a donut, a man responding with a dick pic because he thought it was an asshole pic, and then I am still dying just thinking about it. The secondhand embarrassment. It's terrible. I'm haunted.
Then we have Pest publication for teens, which I don't know if you have any opinions about, but I've actually read something in this category that I really did enjoy. So we're a little
so bad at knowing
the
the difference between something, because like a lot of comics are like the age is like teen plus. So I don't know what falls
I think
into.
like the books are it's more books that I think are like really like geared toward teens, so like more of like
so like the Piccolo Titan stuff and
yeah
right?
exactly
Yeah.
that was a good that was good. So we have Blackword by Lawrence Lindell from Drawn and Quarterly, Danger and Other Unknown Risks by Ryan North and Erica Henderson from Penguin Random House, Frontera by Giulio Anta and Jacob B. Salcoto through Harper Alley, Lights by Brenna Thumler through Oni Press, Monstrous, a transracial adoption story by Sarah Meyer through First Second, which is the one that I have read because Sarah Meyer is
I was going to say, I didn't realize
Teenage Mutant Ninja
Monstrous
Turtles.
was like specifically a teen thing.
Yeah, it's like it's about like her growing up, so I can see how that's where it was put, and really really good book. And My Girlfriend's Child Volume 1 by Memru Aoi, translated by Hannah Allen through Seven Seas. So yeah, I've read one of those. So progress.
Give us your thoughts on Monstrous. I've heard good things, but I haven't actually read it.
Monstrous is really good. I think I told you that I thought you would really really like it. It's like I'm not even gonna say semi. It is actually an autobiography told through a comic book, which is a really weird thing to do, but it ended up being just like a really beautiful and well put together book. To a creator like just, I guess like seeing a comic book artist like tell their literal own story through comic books is just a really cool thing. And Sarah Meyer's just a really, really good artist. So yeah,
Rad.
that's my thoughts on Monstrous. But yeah,
Awesome.
let's keep moving. Best anthology. This is like the actual anthology, not like an
Ooh,
anthology story. Do you have an
nice.
opinion on this?
I mean, I really enjoyed. I haven't read all of them, but I was really liking Batman Urban Legends. I think that they were doing a lot of fun
Mm,
things in there, and I'm obviously just a sucker for the Bat family, so exploring Gotham was delightful.
yeah.
What other
I'm gonna
anthology
throw out that I do
books?
think this is meant for like so like a single anthology. So you'd be
Oh,
like
that's
Batman Urban
fair.
Legends issues. So you could like throw
Yeah,
out one if you remember.
I.
I
It
just
has been a good 6 months since I've read any
yeah.
Urban
We
Legends.
could put in that
Um,
anthology. So I think that's so unfortunately.
I would certainly say that the Norts Illustrated should not be in here. That was mid at best.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we read that together. Um, I don't remember if I liked the Pride one this year or last year. I don't. Oh,
What about
I
isn't
think it's a
there isn't
bad
that
sign if
one?
I didn't remember it.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like DC's done so many. Which is
They've started doing so many
to
over the
not bury the
past like
lead.
4 years.
DC I think does the most out of any publisher right now, and they did not get any in the category. So that's a little rough.
Which is
Despite I
wacky
think they
because
had
they
the second
also
most
did.
nominations
I think last
after
year was
Image.
also like Wonder Woman, Black, White, and Gold, right?
Yeah, I think they haven't done
And
any
that
like
got
Black, White,
nothing.
and anything anthology. Yeah, but they
Interesting.
yeah no they didn't get any of that stuff.
Yeah,
So
I've
yeah, we'll go
I've
through
got
here.
no horse in this race.
Yeah, we'll go through. We have comics for Ukraine through Zoop, Deep Cuts through Image, The Devil's Cut through Distillery, Marvel Age 1000 through Marvel, The Outside trans and non-binary comics through Andrews McNeil rather, Swan Song through Image as well. So Image got two here. But yeah, I haven't read it. I actually did pick up Marvel Age 1000 because people were making like a big deal about that, but I never actually ended up
Mm.
reading it. So maybe this is the push to dig that out and read
There
it.
you go.
But
This could be another category to run through for us. It was just single anthology books. We'll see.
that's true. That's true. That just feels like it'd be crazy to this because like we already have a tough time discussing one anthology book because of like
That's
discussing the
fair. We
individual
get too
story. Like I
excited
feel like
when
it
we
would make more
talk
sense
about
to go through
books.
the best short story and just read the individual anthology stories than like
That
the
is a
best
better
collected
idea for
anthologies and
our
go through and be
level.
like, oh god. Also, I think like
Yeah,
a
with our
couple of
level of
those, the
self
ones that were like
control.
Kickstarter books, like Comics for Ukraine through Zoop, are like 200-page books. Like we're not talking about a 24-page anthology
Fair
that we're
enough. Fair
talking about
enough.
like
Fair enough. Not this category.
yeah. So next up we
What
have
is our
best
next up?
we. Yeah. By the way, we're less than halfway through these. So maybe we'll skip over a couple
Yeah,
of
we'll
them
cut
as
some
we
out.
get best adaptation from another medium.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Um, all right, all right. Anything you wanna throw out here? We talked about an adaptation on the pod, but I think it was from years ago.
It was
Um,
from many years ago because that was
yeah.
the Percy
So
Jackson one.
yeah.
Um.
No, not the Percy Jackson one. I was talking about
Oh,
the
Thundercats.
raining spikes one, the one about like the
Oh,
glass
Rain. Yeah.
shards raining from
Good
rain.
old
Yeah.
Rain.
Yeah.
Joe Hill.
Um,
Yeah, I think that was from a couple years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, because I think
So
Zoe Thorogood was
did you read any
nominated for a couple
adaptations
of
of this one?
Eisners for that last year. Um,
Hmm.
we read the Thundercats one. I don't know if that would count.
No, that's like
Yeah,
we're
I
talking
wouldn't think
adaptation,
so. I
not
don't.
just property
I
from
know.
another medium.
I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
how
yeah.
close to the show the comic was. Um,
Oh no,
did we
I think
read
it's a
any?
new. I don't think we read any. So
Lay the nominees on me.
we have Beowulf, through Macmillan. We have hashtag DRCL Midnight Children, Volume 1, which is based on Bram Stoker's Dracula, uh, which is through Viz Media. We have H.P. Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, through Dark Horse. The Monkey King, The Complete Odyssey, through Magnetic. And Watership Down, through 10 Speed Graphic. So, stuff we're very familiar
Well,
with.
I didn't
Obviously.
read any of those, but we did read a Frankenstein poll this week.
We did. We
We'll be
did.
getting to
I was.
that soon.
Yeah. We did. So. let's get to best writer. Um, so
I know Tom was nominated for
yes,
Nightwing.
is there anybody else you think deserves to be there? Because there's one that I think
From
has
last
deserved to be
year.
here for the. There's two writers that I think deserve to be here for the past like decade, but never get a nomination. And one I'm not surprised about, and one I'm always very surprised about. So I'll throw them out. Tom Waltz, I'm not surprised about, but I think he definitely deserves credit. I'm a little bit surprised Last Ronin didn't get credit when it like had initially,
That
you know,
is
the
fair. I
first
can't
Last
believe
Ronin.
that didn't.
Yeah.
Who's your
Ben
second?
Bishop actually posted like yesterday where he was like, I can't believe Kevin Eastman is not getting nominations for this shit. And I'm like, I agree. And then the other one that I am shocked has not gotten a single nomination across the last 20 years is Robert Kirkman. Like, how has Robert Kirkman never been nominated for Best Writer?
He's
Like,
never
that
been
is,
nominated?
I think, absurd to me. Yeah, I was looking into it like last year, and I was like,
Weird.
how has this man not been nominated for Best Writer? Like, he's had books nominated, and like, we'll get when we get to Best Artist. The artist on one of his series is nominated, but he just doesn't get nominations, and I think it's
That's
wild.
wacky. Because
Right?
Void Rivals Volume 1 was last year, right?
As was Firepower. I think
that.
those are the only two that came out last year. But yeah, like he's had a few. But you would think at some point during the height of Walking Dead and Invincible releasing at the same time, the man would get a Best Writer nomination. But
You
anyway,
think.
I'm not upset about a lot of the people here because, you know, a lot of it is very reasonable people here. It's just
Right.
I felt the need to point out a couple people who I think do not get enough Eisner love. Do you want to throw out anybody else who you think should get a Best Writer nom?
Well, I don't remember who's
He's a-
actually in the category.
Yeah. There's one that you might say that might be in the category because I think there's one that you might be thinking of that's in the category.
Well, I know there's obviously a separate category for writer-artist. And I don't know if they do crossover
this is just
with
writer.
those.
They don't do crossover. Writer artist is its own thing. You don't see any of them in either the.
Do you remember was Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow last year? Or was that the year before? That might have been the year before.
2 years ago, I think. Actually, might have been. Was that 2022? Was that 20? It might have been 2021 into 2022.
I don't need to remember the passage of time. Never mind. I wish I had.
No, that was
no,
a
you're
little
good.
bit ago. I don't think that was last year. Yeah, I don't think that. Was,
oh, jeez.
Recent.
Who's on the list? I can't think of.
Yeah. The very last person on the list, and we'll get there, is one who I really thought you were going to say. So we have Stephen Graham Jones, who did Earth Divers for IDW, which actually got a lot of Eisner love. So
nice.
Maybe that's something to check.
I have
Muriko Tamaki,
even heard of it. I don't think.
Muriko Tamaki, who did Roaming for Drawn and Quarterly, also nominated, and then the rest are people who are a little bit more, I think, mainstream. So we have Tom Taylor for Nightwing and Titans. We have
Tom Taylor for Nightwing.
We have Kelly Thompson for Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, Black Cloak, The Cull, It's Jeff, and Captain Marvel. You were saying Kelly Thompson was on this list a lot, so it makes sense to then see Kelly Thompson under the Best Writer category. That tracks. Next one is another one that makes a ton of sense. Mark Waid, Batman, Superman, World's Finest. Shazam, and so World's Finest Teen Titans was this year, so it could have been we talked about that. That could have been Best Limited. So yeah, that's definitely interesting but Mark Waid gets a little bit of credit here for it. And then this is the one that I thought you were gonna name, G. Willow Wilson for Poison Ivy and Hunger in the Dusk. Yeah.
No, she is so
that's
cool.
one that I'm very.
You know what? She
honestly,
G.
Willow Wilson.
You, Tom Taylor. Not really. I love you,
might be. G. Willow Wilson might be my vote here. It's going to be tough, I think, between G. Willow Wilson and Mark Waid. I think those are the two that I'm going to have a hard time deciding between. Because
that is so fair.
Just
I keep meaning to read her Poison Ivy series because I really, really want to. And I've got like this beautiful hardcover of it because I was so excited when it came out.
I was going to say, I thought you had it. I thought you had read it because you kept talking to me about it. You kept being like,
really
it got extended and it's going. So I really thought you had read it. Which is why I really thought you were going to name her because, like, between the two of them, I thought you would be like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But,
look, it's hard to pull names out of the ether, okay?
No, jeez. Fair. I just mentioned Hunger in the Dusk like several times before, so I was like, maybe you'll go down that track again.
No, that's so fair. I should have. I think you're super cool, G. Willow Wilson. We've said before, all of the best
next,
names in comics are 3-part names.
yeah, if you have a 3-part name in comics, you just kind of sound cool.
You're made.
Like, you just sound
Yeah.
important. It feels like you matter, you know?
All right, what's our next category?
We have best writer artist up next. So somebody who does it all, who does both. Do you want to throw out a name? Because I think you know one of the names, and I think you're going to be.
I feel like you think I'm gonna say Sean Gordon Murphy, and I will.
No, that's not who I thought you were gonna say.
Every year, I don't even care if he put a book out.
No,
I'm gonna go wild. I'm gonna say Ben Stenbeck.
I agree with that. I'm actually kind of shocked by that, not by him not being here. I think Ben Stenbeck should. When did Arbon's Dust release? Actually, is when we really need to look at. But I feel like at least one issue came out in 2023. But maybe
Certainly.
one issue is not enough.
Mostly 2023, I think. I could be wrong.
I don't remember, honestly.
Oh, but I guess maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll get it next year.
Maybe he'll get it next year. Hopefully he gets it next year. But I would agree with you on Sean Gordon Murphy.
I think Plot Holes was last year.
Plot Holes was last year.
I guess it's weird because that's again something that was.
Yeah. The point, he's working. You could put something on him last year, because then you can put Zorro on him. Because I think the Zorro Kickstarter was last year, so you can, however you want to look at it. Something happened in 2023. So, and if it's Sean Gordon Murphy, it doesn't really matter which one of his books it is,
because it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah. So, but let's get into the people who are there. Yes. We have Emily Carroll for A Guest in the House through Macmillan. Not familiar with her work. I don't know if you are. But Bill Griffith for 3 Rocks through Abrams Comic Arts. Also not somebody I'm super familiar with. Then, of course, we have Daniel Warren Johnson for Transformers through Image Skybound. Yeah, I think Daniel Warren Johnson's the best writer artist working right now, in my opinion. So, yeah. We have Moku Makurin for The Summer Hikaru Died through Yen Press. Then we have one for you here. We have Zoe Thorogood for Hack / Back to School.
And it is gorgeous. Again,
and then we have Tilly Walden.
I know where everything is.
Then we have Tilly Walden for Clementine Book 2 through Image Skybound. So yeah, those are our writer artists. Any snubs that you want to point out or anything that you want to?
I'm not going to say snubs. I am going to say I have to give it to Daniel Warren Johnson. I love Zoe Thorogood so much.
I just don't think anybody is there right now. Daniel Warren Johnson's just so great. Maybe Ben Stenbeck comes. Ben Stenbeck's the other person who I would throw up there. Ben Stenbeck is on that point where it's just the art and the writing marry so well. But Daniel Warren Johnson is just a crazy man.
And see, I do really like Zoe Thorogood's Hack / Back to School.
You are a huge Zoe Thorogood fan. But let that be known. If she hasn't said that on the podcast many times before.
Transformers not only was so good, it also just made such an impact. I think that's the thing with the Oscars, where they look at the quality of the movie but also the impact of the movie. And if you're looking at books that had an impact last year,
I don't buy that the Oscars look at impact.
No, here's the Oscars
look at impact. They'd have different winners for every single award.
Some of the
awards Oscars give are movies nobody wants. No,
I know nothing about the Oscars.
I don't buy that.
But whether or not they actually do, I think it's supposed to be a factor, at least from my knowledge osmosis.
Gotcha. It seems like the Eisners actually do a better job with that. Eisner's, I feel like it's more of stuff where you actually go if this was big and this had a big thing within the comic community, it's actually there. Which is why I'm shocked when things The Last Ronin don't pop up. It's that was such a huge deal. It's no. Sometimes the Eisner's just
so even though my heart is voting for Zoe Thorogood in this category, my head is voting for Daniel Warren Johnson.
That's fair. We're gonna jump to Best Penciler Inker or Best Penciler Inker Team. So
Bruno.
You have any?
Is he not in there? Is Bruno in there?
Is who not in there?
Is Bruno in there?
I'm sorry to say. I'm sorry to say Bruno's not in there. I'm sorry.
Maybe he's in covers. He does such good covers too. Well, I'm gonna say Bruno then. He should be in there. It's just
He's
so
not in
good.
there.
The action is so well done. Everything is so dynamic and filled with personality and energy. I'm cutting myself off because I
No,
will
no.
just start talking about Bruno Redondo again.
Yeah, yeah. You just want to. You could just start going. I think. Oh man, I'm gonna forget his name right now. It's Fe, Fe, let me look it up before I butcher this. Um, Lorenzo Del Felici, sorry, I think should be there. Who is the artist on Void Rivals? We've talked at length about some of the gorgeousness
very,
of that
very,
art.
very good art. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's gonna be my little throw out.
I'm also gonna throw Hayden Sherman out there. I think they do an amazing job on the books that they're on, and I think last year had
That's fair.
Dark Spaces Dungeon with Scott Snyder.
There's so many people who are like, this is a hard category, so I'm not gonna criticize them for like looking over some people because this is a hard category. Yeah, yeah. So we have Jason Sean Alexander for Detective Comics and Philadelphia, through Image. We have Tula Latay for Barnstormers: A Ballad of Love and Murder, through Comicsology Originals / Best Jacket, and Godzilla: Here There Be Dragons from. God, man, they need to put spaces between different things because sometimes it merges together. Then we have Anaki Miranda for Godzilla: Here There Be Dragons through IDW. Then we have Dan Mora for Batman, Superman, World's Finest, and Shazam through DC. Which, yeah, Dan Mora I think is going to get my vote to win this because, yeah, just like correct.
He's so good. Like him and Jorge Jimenez, just god tier.
And then we have Chris Sammy for Firepower through Image Skybound, which, yeah,
ripped to Robert Kirkman.
Yeah, ripped to Robert Kirkman. Then we have Jillian Tamaki for Roaming through Drawn and Quarterly.
I mean, Dan Mora. What more can I say? Truly nothing else. Just Dan Mora. I hope he also gets a nom for covers because he also does phenomenal covers.
I'm not going to spoil anything.
That's fair. I may have thoughts about his covers when they come up.
Next up, we have Best Cover Artist, which I'm not going to read all the credits for because they each have like 10 million credits to their name because it's covers. But anybody you want here?
I mean, I want Bruno here. His Nightwing covers are just so good. They're so like graphically interesting. He always just goes the extra mile on them. Look at how cute. That's the first one I opened too, which isn't like my favorite example. Gosh, his covers aren't in the back of this book. What the heck? I think it's probably because they're in the middle of the book, in between.
It's okay. Chapters. I'm trying to suss out where the names actually are in this because again, there's no line spaces, and when the credits then go like onto multiple lines, it's hard to tell like what names are.
No, I get.
Anyway, though, we have
Nightwing just has some of the coolest fucking covers out there.
So first up here we have Jen Bartel, who basically all the covers are for DC and Marvel. We have Evan Cagle, who only did Detective Comics covers, which is interesting. The only
I wonder
person
if that's for
one,
the Rom V covers, the like opera themed ones, because those are gorgeous.
Probably. Then we have Jenny Friesen, who has just a lot of credits.
So cool. She's super rad. She was at C2E2.
Very cool. We then have EM Gist.
I don't think
who has a ton of credits. Then Peach Momoko.
Oh, gorgeous.
And then
beautiful colored pencil work
is Dan Mora as the final cover. There he is.
I'm trying to figure out if my love of Dan Mora's covers is truly a love of Dan Mora's covers or just a love of like the way he draws characters, which is, one and the same. But
Yeah, I was like, that's kind of part of the thing.
it's definitely a major part of it. But like, I feel like he does such classic covers in that they are like, because they're just like a guy on the cover. Like, I love his cover so much. I always get fucking doubles of Nightwing when he does Nightwing covers because I want Bruno's and I want his. But I guess they don't necessarily like elevate, like they're good covers, but it feels like they're just extensions of the interiors as opposed to being like,
You see,
doing something weird.
I'm gonna push that the best covers are extensions of the interiors, and we have become too accustomed to covers that don't reflect the book inside.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
half-heartedly disagree in that I don't think that they should be like essentially like clickbait covers in either direction, because there's the classic version of the quote-unquote clickbait cover where it's like, Superman has killed Lois Lane, what? And then that is not at all what's happening
Silver
inside the
Age
book.
DC covers. So
Yep,
much fun.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. So many apes. But then I think there's also the kind of other side of the more of like a gimmick cover. Like there was the I really liked them, but there were the Titans ones that were just like all of the Titans characters in their civvies, like in their civilian clothes.
Yeah,
And it was like, it's cool. I like them as art. They're not necessarily doing a cover though.
No, that's fair. I'm more of like, I think that I think cover A should always be done by the interior artist. That's a big like personal point of mine. Like I really dislike when they're like, no, we're gonna get a cover artist to just be the cover artist. I'm like, but then like you're not advertising what the people are actually gonna get. Like you're gonna open
that's fair. And
a different kind of art, and I'm like, that feels weird to me. Like just
I have a lot of thoughts on
it should be a more
covers.
spectacular image and more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, it's a different when it's a variant too of like, but there's books where literally the cover A is not done by the interior artist. So I'm like, that's just, I don't get that. But anyway, let's move on to best coloring. We have Jordi Belair, Matt Hollingsworth, Lee Louridge, Dave McCraig, and Dean White.
Lee Louridge, we've read a number of books from.
Yeah. Yes. And Matt Hollingsworth, I believe, as well.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things
and then
where...
the one I want to throw out here that I find very interesting is because maybe as much as I don't like things like this is like something that should give you like bonus points for, an award like this. Dave McCaig is the one who's coloring the deluxe Walking Dead issues. So like the only thing being done in those books is the coloring. So maybe, like that's like a bonus point thing. It's like you're kind of doing the only thing that's being done. Anyway.
Yeah, no,
just something I wanted to mention there.
Coloring is obviously such an important part of comics. Like, it's incredibly important. It's just so hard to notice when it's done well, in the same way that it's, unless you're actively looking for it, it's very hard to notice when lettering is done well, unless it's done
there's
in like
a
specifically style. I would say that the person who did the Daredevil gang war coloring, that was like really elevating coloring.
I'm gonna throw one that's also not from last year, but some coloring that I think is absolutely elevating coloring is Jason Wordy, who did the Morningstar coloring.
Morningstar,
like that's some coloring that's like,
yes,
like that. Yeah. That's something I'd like to see up here next year. Like
yes,
that's some real good coloring.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Well, let's move on. We'll get some familiar names in the best lettering section. Because, of course, as we commonly mention, there are only 5 letterers in comic books. So, they basically all get a nomination. Yeah. But it's just,
right, who we got?
If you can see the credits on this page, these people each do like 20 books.
Letters. Give John Layman a lettering credit.
Yeah!
He lettered in Hell We Fight. He did a great job.
What's wild is, and it might be because he didn't letter any of his books this year, but I can't tell. Like, I think this is the first time Stan Sakai hasn't been on here in years. Like, I think he had won like the last 3 straight or something like that. But yeah, no, he no Stan Sakai this year. So in the best lettering tournament, we have Lauren Bowies, Emily Carroll, Bill Griffith, Hassan Atzman Allow, of course, one of the men who does a million books.
Everything.
And I'm just making sure that I don't miss somebody else's name here in the length of his credits. Oh, no, okay. And then we jump to the other man who does a million books, Russ Wooten, who I think is going to be my vote, because I just think Russ Wooten's the best letterer.
That's so fair. I feel like my thing with Hassan specifically is that he does a really good job with just regular ass lettering, but he's someone who really can letter for incredibly styled art, and his lettering always feels like it can go to the extreme style. Like, I'm specifically thinking of all the times he's worked with Hayden Sherman. So like on Chicken Devil, on Above Snakes, where it really feels like the lettering can pull up to that hyper stylized degree, and fit really well in that. And I'm sure that Russ Wooten can do that as well. I just don't have as many thoughts of it.
I feel like he does in Transformers, honestly. Like, I feel like his lettering in Transformers is so like emphatic, and like it fits Daniel Warren Johnson. Like, when you have something where like almost everything's done by one man, obviously new artist now, but like, and then he can so seamlessly like blend his lettering into that. Like, that's so cool to me. So like,
I mean, that's so fair, and they're both immensely talented, obviously. It really does feel like
the debate for me is between those two lads who just do all of the lettering in the industry.
Mm-hmm. It's very much a battle there, but you're landed on Russ, I'm landed on Hassan.
Yeah, so this went long. We'll hopefully edit it down to something somewhat manageable. But in any case, would you like to move into the poll list rec for the week?
Let's move in to the poll list rec. All right, we have some wonderful polls coming at you this week. We've got Heartpiercer, number 1. The Gunhand, number 1. The Displaced, number 4. Napalm Lullaby, number 3. And Sinister Sons, number 4.
Can you believe I couldn't get my hands on a Sinister Sons? Like, that feels like such a weird comic to not be able to get my hands on.
That is very weird. I feel like anytime you can't get your hands on a DC, it's like, what happened? What happened?
Yeah, real weird. But it's just because I just came back home, so new store, so polls won't start actually coming in for, like a month. But yeah, it's okay. I got 3 out of the 5.
And I'm sure so much more. Jaybird, what else did you pick up this week?
Let's see. I got Something Epic, number 10. Exo Manowar Invictus, because they had to make a new book instead of just continuing the old one because Valiant. Secret History of the Foot Clan, numero 3, and Green Lantern, number 11. Fairly light week for me, honestly. But
you're telling me I didn't pick up anything but our pod polls.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I was so shocked because I was like, oh man, the only thing I have that we're not going to talk about on the pod is Heartpiercer. But then it turns out we were talking about that on the pod, and will be. So like maybe there's a World's Finest or a Nightwing or something that came out, or something I have pulled at my other store, but
didn't Nightwing come out like last week? I feel like
I was gonna say,
I don't think it's a Nightwing week
for me.
I don't know about World's Finest. It could be a World's Finest week.
It could be.
Who's
it could also not be. Who knows? See, normally I feel like where my pull list bloats out is where I'm pulling all of the indie number 1s.
Yeah.
But you wanted to read them this week, so
yeah.
I suppose there's only one of them that counts with that. Anyway.
Yeah, I was like, it's just hard. Well, the Gunhand is also an indie number 1, but that was actually my suggestion.
Pick,
yeah, that was a me pick. But in any case, do you have an order in mind here?
Oh my goodness. Well,
I think every single book's a different publisher.
It is.
If not mistaken.
I think
double up
we
anywhere.
Should do
so.
Sinister Sons, The Displaced, Napalm Lullaby, The Gunhand, then Heartpiercer.
I agree. I think that sounds good.
Alright, so starting off with Sinister Sons, let's jump to it. Sinister Sons number 4. Sinister Sons face a hungry space whale. Will the Sinister Sons be digested by this great space whale? Will the Sinister Sons defeat Major Tom? Will the Sinister Sons duel against the pirate sites end in disaster? The writer here is Peter J. Tomasi of Super Sons, Green Lantern Corps, and Superman. The artist is Vasco Georgiev of Amazon's Attack, Batman Urban Legends, and Xena, Warrior Princess. The colorist is Tamra Bonvillian, and the letterer is Rob Lee. Jaybird, we've been enjoying Sinister Sons.
Yeah.
And I feel like this issue, it opens up with an appearance
one of my favorite characters,
Sinestro, which
Which
how are you feeling about number 4?
Just immediately have to give I love the way Vasco Georgiev, if that's how you pronounce it, draws Sinestro. Like, just a good looking Sinestro.
No, you're gonna be so mad at me for saying this, but one of my notes is literally, "Oh my god, Sinestro's a DILF."
Oh god, I'm gonna move on as if that was not
so
just
mad.
stated.
But it's so true.
I'm just gonna move through. But okay,
go ahead.
And make a slight note of how different this would go if the way that I opened one of our things was just talking about how hot one of the female characters was drawn in something.
Disagree. I disagree.
Anyway. No. So we're gonna move on. And the interesting thing about this issue, if I can articulate this correctly, is that I really like where this is setting up the series to go, but I felt like this issue itself felt a little bit flat to me. I really like the opening and the ending. Everything with Sinestro is really, really good.
Oh yeah.
I did like, this was the issue where I was getting like, they've been in Melville for too long. Like, they've been stuck inside this whale for just too long. It's really hard for them to do anything in this issue, and so not much really does happen in this issue. I liked the pirate sites, I think is what they're called.
Yeah.
I thought they were cool, but we don't really get to really interact with them because they're really outside the whale and our characters are in the whale. I'm just like, I think we're at the end of that length, and I think we now are actually moving out of that, which is why I'm excited moving forward. We're going to get Sinestro, hopefully, and Red Lantern Sinestro, which is a super cool thing set up by the current series, so that's cool. So yeah, I'm excited. I still enjoyed this. This is a hard book for me to ever not enjoy because it's Green Lantern adjacent. The art's fun. It's just a fun kind of style of comic book making as a whole, from the writing, art. Like, everything is just made to kind of be a fun issue. So yeah, like that's kind of where I land on it. I feel like this issue was probably my least favorite of the series so far on its own, but I like where we're going.
No, I'm gonna agree with you that it feels like a step down from the previous couple of issues. I do appreciate that there was still good characterization and fun between Lorzad and Sinsun. I think that they got a couple of really silly moments that really highlighted their relationship dynamic, and I'm really, really excited for this Sinestro stuff because, like you said, it feels like the plot is plotting now, and I definitely agree that we've been in the whale for too long because they were swallowed by the whale in like issue 2, right?
In issue 2, we've been in the whale for the vast majority of 3 issues, like inside of a whale, which is a lot.
It's a lot. It's certainly a lot, especially because it didn't feel like we had forward momentum getting out of the whale.
No,
but I still love Major Tom. He got to be pretty fucking cool in this issue, which I'm thrilled about. What I will say is my one complaint, like my one consistent complaint with this book that I haven't brought up before because I thought it was going to be fixed immediately. I really like Sinsun's design. Why does he have this horrible, ugly Sinestro haircut on the cover of all of these books, but then he has these like adorable kind of greasy, weird feral child locks in the book? I love the feral child look. I wish on the cover he looks like that.
That's a good question,
right?
I feel like going back, like it feels like the kind of thing where like the cover is done from like a design sheet or something that was created for the character. So like my assumption would be that the covers are like how they're going to finish the series looking.
Right.
Which feels like a weird thing to do all the way through. I feel like that, like, it's funny because I feel like that's a complaint I talked about all the time in like Ultimate Spider-Man, where I'm like, they're just not
Yeah.
drawing the Spider-Man that's actually in the book. So yeah, I'm with you on that. That's always a weird
It's
thing
just
in
such an
comics when they
odd
decide to
thing.
just detach the cover from
Mhm.
like what the comic actually is. But yeah,
Exactly. But
no,
it's
I
a
fully agree
minor
with you. Is
thing.
the
It's
point you're
not
making?
that
Oh,
big of a
super minor
deal.
thing.
Yeah.
But some I just wanted to say that I agree with you.
But yeah, no, this
Yeah,
book, it continues to be fun. It's a good time.
yeah,
I feel like as
yeah.
we're going, it's getting more and more of the charm that Super Sons had, which I'm thrilled about. And yeah,
Yeah,
I've been enjoying this greatly.
same. And I think Sinestro is going to hopefully bring a very like just vary the dynamic and make it like
Hmm.
more interesting. Because you talked about the fact that the Suns being like they're different, but their similarity in a way is like gonna
Yeah.
doesn't allow for like that kind of harsh dynamic. I think Sinestro is gonna really be a fun kind of harsh
Yes.
dynamic in this. So I'm really excited about it. I just love Sinestro too.
Absolutely.
He's my favorite comic book villain if you were unaware. So I am very excited for more Sinestro.
But what numbered rating would you give this issue?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a 6.5 on this one. I was a little bit, especially in the middle there, just wishing that we could be out of the whale. But
Hmm.
it was still fun. The art's still great. And I'm still enjoying it. So 6.5 out of 10
Do
is where
you
I'm
think
landing.
this is somewhere to jump in?
I'm I'm gonna say no just because I'm guessing based on setup that the next issue is gonna be better. Because
Mhm.
this feels like it's the end of a story arc. Like I think the whale was a story arc. I don't think the whale should have been a story arc, but I think the whale was a story arc.
No,
So
for
I'm
sure.
gonna say no. Because I
Mhm.
feel like you're gonna be a little confused that they're just in this whale.
No, I'm with you on there. I was just that half step down from you. I gave this one a 6, mostly because I feel like we got that momentum at the end and a little bit of intrigue at the beginning, but I'm seasick,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. I'm whale sick.
Exactly. I'm space
Yeah,
whale sick.
I'm
But
space
yeah,
whale sick.
good fun time. Very excited for the next issue.
Yeah, but do you want to talk about the Displaced?
The Displaced, I sure do. Let's
Let's do it.
disappear.
Let's displace.
Let's displace.
The Displaced, number 4. In the penultimate issue, the survivors are in their most desperate situation yet, exposed to the elements with nowhere left to go. In the midst of a grim realization between two survivors seeking hope elsewhere, one of their own is getting sick, and the inevitable is to be expected. The writer is Ed Brisson of Uncanny X-Men, Old Man Logan, and Batman Incorporated. The artist is Luca Casalgaida of James Bond, Scout's Honor, and Lost Soldiers. The colorist is D. Knief, and the letterer is, of course, Hassan Atman. Allow. I think we've been fairly positive on this place
Yes.
so far. One of our favorite books to be coming out right now, especially mine. But I'm interested to hear, because things kind of really ramp up in this issue. So I'm interested to hear how you feel about issue 4.
I I enjoy the series so much. I like this issue for the most part. Like you said, it cranks up to 11 in terms of like the things that happen, but I feel
Yeah.
like we kind of go from 0 to 11. Like there's a time skip, I believe, between the end of last issue and the start of
Yeah,
this
they've kind
one.
of been like, yeah, two. So two. I think we're probably jumping forward like a month ish because
Yeah,
it starts
something like
2 month
that.
post event. So
And
yeah,
so I really like that they're the kind of two groups separated out, the ones who are just kind of surviving as best they can, and then the group that's more kind of actively abusing this situation. Like they're robbing, they're
yeah.
stealing, all that good stuff. They're taking advantage of.
Taking advantage of a junkie.
Yeah. And so I really liked that there were those two groups, but
Me
I
too.
feel like it was a weird place for a time jump with this being the second to last issue. Like,
That's super fair.
I don't know that it was needed. I get that it was important for the one character. I don't think that's a spoiler. I'll talk around it just in
Okay.
case.
Yeah, talk around it.
Um,
Talk around
a
it.
character makes a decision that wouldn't really. I don't think that it needed to be after a month of all of this happening. Um, for one of them. It's so tough because There are very
Yeah, I
cool
know.
things happening in this issue.
No, I think this is the right. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And yes, continue to talk around it because
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
There's one character who I think it makes sense for her to make a decision after a full month. There's another character who I feel like did not need a full month to make the decision that she made.
Mm-mm.
And it just, I feel like the time skip just, it took me out of it a bit. Like we had some really good movement at, was it the end of last issue? We were the issue before where the guy was in prison and he disappeared.
Last issue. Wait, prison was 2 issues ago, and the last issue was Hank or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Hank.
Him killing himself.
Yeah.
So I feel like we had a lot of great stakes with it being so close. It feels like a weird time to let your characters fall into this like kind of sense of security and this lull right before the conclusion. And that really disrupted the issue for me quite a bit. How did you feel?
That's fair. I'm gonna agree with you that the time jump is awkward. And that's like it's miniseries syndrome, man. Like there's no good place for this to happen because you're shoving things into 5 issues. It feels like the thing where they wanted to tell a longer story, and then because they have 5 issues, they're chopping out a bit.
Yeah.
Which is rough. That being said, once we do that time jump, what follows I really enjoy. Like I wish we had that ramp up because I think you're correct that it kind of goes from like 0 to 11, and that's a little bit like I was like, what? I definitely got a little whiplash. I was like, oh man, this is all happening.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I guess it is the penultimate, and then that's when I went like, I guess it is the penultimate, so it makes some sense. But yeah, I got a little bit of whiplash on that front. But I did really enjoy it. Like you said, I like the different groups, and then we kind of get a third kind of group as the 2 guys whose names I forget. They kind of split off and do their thing. And I really like their story throughout this. I thought that was really cool. And kind of the way they all culminate with like what ends up happening on the last page, you know, like it's leading to that with all the characters, which I think is really cool. Emmett's like kind of growing panic as he's trying to hold everything together throughout the issue, I thought was super well handled.
Agreed.
I also just really like the opening in terms of like the dialogue there between Gabby and Emmett. So yeah, it's tough because like I don't necessarily love how they got to this issue and how they jumped into it, but like looking at this issue on its own, I really, really did enjoy it. It's the thing where I'm like, I really wish we had like 2 more issues before we got to this issue, but I do really, really enjoy this issue.
Same.
So that's the tough thing on this issue. But I really did feel like, once I got like, and this is how I'm gonna, you know, just to, like not to fully transition us to ratings, but kind of to transition to where I'm gonna land on that. I felt like once I was maybe, I don't know, 6 pages into this issue or 10 pages into this issue, like approaching the halfway point, I feel like I almost forgot about the time jump and I let it go. I was like, we're going and I'm with you now. So I think that's a credit to them. And so that's what I'm going to use to grade it. I'm going to be like,
no, I'm going to let it go.
So I'm going to let myself let it go.
All right. So what would your numbered rating be?
I slapped a 9 out of 10 on this because like I really like the issue. Again, that's my one gripe. But in terms of the actual content of the issue, I don't know if I have any gripes with the pacing, with the dialogue, with the art. I think all of those were fantastic. So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
No, I think I'm gonna be a little lower for you just because the time jump did mess with me a bit more. But the end of this issue is so rad, and what this issue is building to is so rad. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
That's fair.
Certainly not a pull-list rank. Penultimate issue.
No. And a true penultimate.
Yes.
But I think that's my other thing too, is like, I feel like at the end of issue, I think we talked about the end of issue 3 and we were like, this is a 5-issue mini. And I was like, I don't know how they're getting there. Right? Like, it just doesn't feel like they can get there. At the end of this issue, yes, they had to sacrifice that weird time jump. So I'm like, well, I know how they're getting to the conclusion, and I'm excited for the conclusion. So,
though I will say, I have no idea what the conclusion is going to be, and that's so.
I have no idea what it's going to be, but I know what we're like. I know the idea going to, which I'm so pumped for.
It's just very exciting to me. Because I feel like with a lot of things, you can kind of see where stuff is going.
Yeah,
and I truly don't know what's going to be on the other side of this. And I'm very, very excited to find out.
This book's so interesting though, because just like throw one more point before we quickly move on is like. There's so many books where I'm like, this suffers for having to be a limited for a miniseries, but like this idea does not benefit being an ongoing. Like, this is an idea that I think needs a concise end to it. But I still think 5 issues is too short. So that's the rough thing here. Is like, I don't think this should be an ongoing, but I think this should have been a book that got like, my head's saying like maybe like 8 issues, but that's like not, you know, a number that you'd actually make a book for. 6 would even be better, but like, so I'm thinking like 10. Like, I'm thinking like I wanted like 2 story arcs to go like a 10. You know, like that's where my head's at. But yeah, I still really enjoy it.
Just have to wait and see how it ends.
Yeah, we will. But
are we ready
speaking of, I was gonna say, speaking of ongoings that don't end, do you want to go talk about Napalm Lullaby number 3?
Let's do it. Napalm Lullaby number 3. Having made their way inside the hallowed domed city during the arrival ceremony of the glorious leader, Sarah and Sam discover that some gods are not what they seem, and that everyone has a plan until the janitor bears witness. The writer here is Rick Remender of Deadly Class, Death or Glory, and Black Science. The artist is Bangle, also of Death or Glory, Catwoman, and Spider-Gwen, and the letterer is our old friend Russ Wooten.
Russell Wooten.
Last time we touched on Napalm Lullaby, we read issues 1 and 2
issues
together.
1 and 2.
And we thought that was definitely the way to read it. Because we felt like issue 1 wasn't going to give us enough, and that issue 2 was a good amount of extra context with that. We're now reading issue 3 all by its lonesome. How do we feel about issue 3?
It feels more like issue 1. Just to start there. But here's my gripe with it, because I don't have much positive to say, which is rough. But here's my big gripe with it. Firstly, this is the 3rd issue that feels like a first issue in a row, which is very rough.
Yeah,
I just don't ever
That's
feel like
a really good way of putting it.
Yeah. And this entire issue feels like it should have been 2 or 3 pages to me. Like, it is just... And not even pages that we haven't gotten before. It feels like it's just retreading this ground of, this is this oppressive religious force, and they're evil because of this. And it feels like we had a whole issue of basically them walking around while captions tell us how evil this place is. And I'm like, that isn't super engaging. The pacing is super rough. There's a couple moments where cool stuff happens. I really like the Gunhand. I thought the Gunhand was a super cool thing. It feels kind of out of nowhere from like scenery and context of this.
Net. Just because that's a net made out of goo. Theory. Yeah.
It's one of the pages I held up because it's one of the only pages that aren't just them walking around. Yeah. Is like this dude getting in a goo net, and then he go boom.
And then he go boom in the goo net.
He go boom in the goo net, and that was awesome. But that was 2 pages. And yeah, the captions were just super heavy-handed. I felt like I like the ending of the issue, which is nice, but yeah, it just felt like a whole issue that didn't accomplish much. I'm getting weirdly more confused about what this world is kind of meant to be, rather they've driven home this oppressive force very well. I get that. I get this religion, but like, I don't really get the balance of like, is it power based or the tech or that, because it just feels like different. Like the powers were kind of here in this issue because we kept getting like, he's an empath and he's like getting this, you know, that's throwing him off and he's very upset about that. But like, we didn't get much with their powers in terms of actually doing stuff with it. So yeah, I'm a little lost. I'm a little frustrated at the lack of movement. I do really like the art, but I didn't think it got a ton to do in this issue. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan. That's
I hear that. I think, not to, try to project meaning, I feel like this issue was supposed to have a lot more tension happening. Like, I feel like it was supposed to be a really kind of like, if they misstep, they're gonna, get found out and everything is gonna go wrong. But a full issue is too long for that tension.
Yeah.
2, the guy who gets hit with the Gunhand, we learn that he has also stolen a halo. And that, it bothered me quite a bit, because I feel like it
Yeah.
made the accomplishment of stealing these halos feel so much less impactful. Like, are people just breaking into this ceremony willy nilly? Like, it feels a little weird
Yeah.
that they're this guy who was clearly not particularly competent got his hands on one and made it in.
Yeah.
And I really like the art, but I feel like
Me too.
we were a bit
A
too
ton, honestly.
expressive for how much we're supposed to be believing that they are going under the radar. Like, our Sam is like having a mental breakdown the entire time, and we see him like crying and gripping his head and looking like he doesn't belong for the entire issue. And like, again, this would, because it would be very boring if there wasn't expressiveness on them, if it was just
Yeah.
they're continuing to blend in. But yeah, I feel like there was an intent of tension here that I did not feel, and
Yeah.
part of that's because of how long it was. You're
Yeah.
totally right.
No, I also I want to like push because I think you hit something, and I think like, and I always hate to say things in fiction are like unearned, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the vibe here is that the tension's unearned. Is like you've not built up, and this is kind of like because I've said all they've said is that this is like this oppressive religious, but the thing is like they've told us that, and they've
Yeah.
continually told us that, but we haven't seen the direct impact of that. We haven't seen the way that that really affects people. So like this feels like something that could be pulled off deep into a long series when we're like really terrified of the villains
Mm-hmm.
and we are like really in love with the characters and we're genuinely terrified that we're going to lose one of them. Like
Yeah.
that's how a scene like this I think works. Full issues, like you said, probably still too long, but it does not work in issue 3 when I'm not super attached to the characters and I'm certainly not scared of the villains.
Right.
So
And I think that's a little bit of a fatal flaw with this book, is when the book's premise is we are going to kill God, we're kind of buying into the story right away that it is possible to kill God, which makes God far less
yeah,
scary.
yeah, no,
But
that's a really good point. I
numbered rating
believe it's
wise, what
your
would you?
turn to start.
That's fair. I switched it up by asking you first on the Displaced. Yeah, I feel like this issue it was not having the effect that it wanted to have, and it's
Agreed.
moving just a bit too quickly. There is a really great moment at the very end of the issue, but I feel like it just felt like it was there because it fit at the end of the issue, not that it was built to in the issue.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
can't even
yeah,
give it that many points for that. Oh, I'm gonna give this. I hate numbered ratings. I'm so bad at them.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing it
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. I'm mulling now. I think I'm gonna give this guy a 4.5. It was real rough
that's
as a single
that's
issue.
what I have written down.
Okay.
So I the fact that you said that makes me feel validated, and so I'm going to stick with
Okay.
my 4.5 out of 10 on this one.
But again, really liked issue 2. Like, we came out
Yeah,
of
really liked
reading
issue
issues 1 and
2.
2 very excited.
Yeah, it
And
just
maybe
needed
this will
more going
read
on.
better as a full story, but
Maybe it will, and like it's still good art, and
oh yeah,
it's competent enough. Like it's not like I'm sitting here and I feel like I'm reading something that doesn't make any sense. It's just
exactly.
like have a little bit of pace, have a little bit of stakes, and I'd be really really here for it.
Hmm.
So yeah, but
But
let's move on.
let's talk about the Gunhand.
Let's do it. The Gunhand #1. Picking up roughly 100 years after Mary Shelley's legendary novel of Science Gone Awry, the immortal monster created by Victor Frankenstein finds himself transported from the icy waters of the North to New York circa 1888. Awakening on the hold of a steamship, the monster is attacked and loses his right arm at the elbow to a crewman's axe. The monster flees to the sprawling city where chance and dark magics will ultimately give the monster the upper hand, a magical arm that will fight him at every turn and drag him across America on a wild and weird journey filled with action, drama, humor, and horror. And 3,000 miles away, in the Golden State, the arms master calls its owner home, unaware of the change in ownership that has occurred The writer is Marty Grosser, who's the editor of the famous Previews magazine. And the artist is Matthew Plog, who this is their first comic book credit. And the letterer is Mark L. Haynes. Katie, why don't you start us off?
So my first kind of thing is that I don't know why this has to be the creature from Frankenstein. Like we get that in like, oh, floating on an iceberg picked up by a random ship. But then it's pretty much completely irrelevant. Like,
I guess
maybe
that's where the
you
idea,
could
like, you read his
argue
thing at the end, that's where the idea came from, and then the other thing I'll throw out is, like, I think that's just what American mythology production does, right? Like, they do, like, you know, public domain kind of horror-ish characters.
Right, but I feel like we have very few parts of this character feel like they are even referencing Frankenstein. Like,
yeah,
we get kind of that kind of movie monster style Frankenstein with the way that he takes out the crew. But then I feel like we are missing the kind of philosopher Frankenstein, like the creature that learned to read and like fell in love with poetry and stuff. And then on top of that, we have this arm grafted on, which now feels like the kind of weird monster part.
yeah.
I feel like it would have been
focus.
a better book without the Frankenstein inclusion. It feels unnecessary, and like I get it as a jumping off point, but I think by the time you write the script, you can kind of realize that the story works very much without that.
Yeah. No, that's super fair.
I also was not loving a lot of the actual like information delivery.
The captions were rough.
The captions were very rough. There's even one page
I thought the dialogue
where
was too.
The dialogue certainly was. There's even a page where you can see that there's a caption box that they kind of left in there that is just the previous page's caption box. And it's just a very weird. It's a very weird book.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, no, it
feels like where I thought you were going to go with the weird information delivery is having an entire letter on a page with full exposition where you then have to turn to the back of the book to read it and get all of this incredibly important information for the book.
Right?
And
no,
like,
that was one of my next points.
Yeah, that's just something where I think like you're failing to use the medium to its like proper you're now just telling people read something in a different medium and like
just read prose.
Where the crux of the plot's coming.
Yeah, and we don't.
And that was real.
Want that? Like I love reading prose, and as a Scott Snyder fan, I love reading prose in comics because that man will simply just write. But this was a little bit extra, a lot of the time, and it the art was fine, but it didn't. There's one page that I really like the art of when the arm is actually being grafted to the creature. There are these cool little insets, and they have these sweet little borders going on, but it feels less like a comic page and more like a poster of some sort.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I didn't feel like it had a lot of comic book page moment. Like, it felt like there was a lot of experimenting in terms of the page layouts in this book. Like, it felt like they didn't really land on a style. Like, it feels like the style changes in terms of layouts throughout the book. Mm-hmm. Which I guess brings me to, like, what I think needs to be said about this book is that, and this is the rough thing, like, I'm going to give the two of them a lot of credit for putting this out, because this is like reading somebody learning how to make a comic book. And, like, that is something that when you put it out for everybody is really, you know, tough. Because, like, now people are going to see where you're struggling, where you're learning, where you're developing. Yeah. And that's what reading this feels like. And to throw out a little bit of credit, they have in the back, like, I guess, I think the like first thing they did, like, a little, like, 2-page little, you know, anthology comic that like kind of is like a proof of concept that it gives you the concept of the book. And I thought that was really, really good. I thought the style was way more consistent throughout. I thought that like the concept comes across immediately. The dialogue was better. The monster was more interesting to me. Like I thought that was really, really cool. But then you go into the full length book and it just the pacing's a little bit off, and all the dialogue's a little bit rough, and the art feels like it's trying to find its style. So yeah, it feels a lot like they're trying to find what works and haven't quite gotten there yet.
No, I think that is a very astute and accurate observation.
What I will say about these books is the covers are great.
Oh yeah.
Like my father just wanted to get out of the house, so he came with me to the comic book store this Wednesday, and I had already pre-ordered this. But he was just like, he'll walk the wall, while doing a look at comics. And the one he picked out where he was like, "Have you seen this book? It's got a really cool cover." Was the Gunhand with like no information on this book. And I was like, "Yeah, it is." And the cover was really cool. So give credit where credit's due. I think they exceeded at that level.
But, oh yeah. And I even like the concept of this like kind of arm with a mind of its own.
I just don't like marrying it with a Frankenstein concept.
No,
I'm like, it feels like you've got too much going on there. Like I don't know if I'm like, is this a continuation of like he kind of said at the back of the book that he didn't want to just do a continuation of Frankenstein because that would be like too everybody's done it. I don't know if I've read a continuation or heard of a continuation of Frankenstein in comics. Like I think you could have done that, or I think the idea of like a cool arm that like doesn't belong to you is a cool idea too.
Yeah.
Marrying them was a little bit of a strange decision.
Agreed.
But in any case, do you want to slap a rating on it, or do you have anything else to say?
I'm good to go.
Oh, is it? Am I supposed to go for? I don't want to.
No. I am supposed to go first. I just don't want to. Like you said, if it is their first time writing and drawing a comic, so there are growing pains to be had. It is rough to have your growing pains, actually on the wall for people to pick up and read.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm gonna give this guy. A 3. I know it's low. Fair. I know it's rough, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah. I'm gonna. I was gonna say a 3.5, but it feels like I'm just intentionally like going ever so slightly above you to try to look like a better person. So I'll agree with you. I think it's in that, like, I don't know what the difference between a 3 and a 3.5 is really, like, in terms of analyzing. It's in that's the area that I would land it in. It's about like a 3 out of 10 because there's flashes of stuff that I'm like, this could be really cool, but I just don't think anything really clicked in this. Yeah. But
are we ready for Heartpiercer?
Let's do it.
Heartpiercer number 1. Atala thought she was saving the world from monsters, but hunting great supernatural beasts brought doom instead. Tricked into killing the last unicorn, betrayed by her lord and left for dead, Atala awakens in a darkened world overrun by nightmares. Broken and ashamed, now Atala seeks revenge and rises to save the world from darkness. This is coming to us from writer Rich Joke of TMNT Universe, The Edge of Spider-Verse, and Magic the Gathering. The artist is Gavin Smith, also of TMNT and Star Trek. The colorist is Nicholas Bergdorf, and the letterer is Justin Birch. Jay. We got very excited and briefly exchanged words about this book. We are both so hype on this book.
Yes.
Tell me what you love about Heartpiercer number 1.
I feel like we got TMNT creatives jumping over into this, so obviously I'm on board, and that's why when Katie suggested this book and I pulled it up and I saw the creative team, I was like, oh yeah, we'll do this. This will happen. I want more Gavin Smith art because Gavin Smith is just such a good artist. Oh my god, Gavin Smith has done some of my favorite covers. Like some Gavin Smith covers are just ridiculous. And obviously his interiors are also incredible. But god, Gavin Smith is just awesome. Which is so much of why I love this first issue. Because a lot of it is the art. Like, I like this issue pretty solidly from a plot perspective. But it's a little heavy on the exposition, I think. because it's setting up a lot, which is fine for first issue. A lot of first issues end up with that kind of, problem. Not really a problem, unless it continues. But this got me hyped for going forward. I have a really good feeling about this book. The plot and concept are just phenomenal. And when you have a great plot, a great concept, and fantastic art, like, that is a recipe for a good comic book.
Sure, fuck it is.
Just, there's a lot of setup to get us where we need to be in this issue, and I didn't count pages, but I don't think it's an oversized issue, so I think that's kind of why it feels a little bit jam-packed and exposition heavy.
We've been spoiled.
Yeah, we've been spoiled. But, yeah, it's just so cool. The character designs are awesome. It really starts ramping up in, like, I'd say the last, like, third. The last third of this issue is so cool as she actually, like, enters the world. Because she is the Heartpiercer. So, like, as the Heartpiercer enters the world and fights these, like, beasts, so awesome and so exciting. I don't know, like, maybe that was a little bit of a spoil, but I don't think there's really much you can spoil in this issue, because there's nothing that, like, isn't where you expect it to kind of go for a first issue. But, yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Yeah, this was good. Good comic.
I mean, number one, talking about making villains scary right off the bat.
Yeah.
The fucking Lord in this shit, insanely scary. In design, in action.
In
obviously
awesome
not a spoiler,
page.
it's in the first, like, 5 pages. He uses the unicorn horn that Heartpiercer brought for him to pierce her heart. And he's like he's so big, he's got these ominous evil antlers, and you see her just, like, suspended off the ground because he's like run her through. It's so good. And I went so nuts for those first, like, 5 pages up until she died. Like, up until he turned on her.
Yeah.
Because she's hunting this unicorn and then realizes that, like, she is the same as the unicorn, being a fool for trusting someone and then getting murdered. And it was just such a good parallel, and I feel like it set up the tone, but also the concept of the book so elegantly. And using the unicorn horn as her weapon now, because she was dropped into the lake with it sticking out of her chest. Get out of here!
And she, like, just comes out and pulls it out of her, and that's another, like, it's a splash, but it has inlaid panels. That's just an awesome page of her, like, looking out at the world.
Yeah,
it's all red. Like, the coloring is awesome. Like, was it in this episode? Yeah, it's in this episode when we talked about the Eisners. We talked about, like, coloring that can really elevate, and we've hit it again here.
Yes.
In, like, coloring that is really elevating.
Yes.
By Nicholas Bergdorf.
Yes.
Just credit, round of applause for you, man.
Round of applause. That's right. No,
Nailed
it's
it.
so good. I am so psyched for this. I also love Atala as a character already. Like, her being betrayed by this evil force and realizing, oh shit, I was working for evil, is so good, because she still has that edge to her. And we love a protagonist who's, like, working for good, but definitely has that kind of, like, dark within. Because, like, she killed the last unicorn, and it seems that she may have been responsible for killing a number of the other great, like, guardian beasts that were keeping evil at bay.
And what a good, like, immediate way to like the perfect protagonist thing, or like the protagonist who, like, always wins thing, to have them killed on, like, page 5. It's like, boom, God, done.
Killed on page 5, and knowing that she is a fool for being killed. Like,
so good.
This hits so hard immediately. I'm so psyched for this. Are you ready to give it a numbered rating?
Yeah, is it me? Is it me?
It is
I think it's me. Okay, so yeah, like I said, like, we harping on the stuff that we love because it's an awesome issue that gets you excited. The first 5 and last 6 pages are basically perfect, in my opinion.
Yes.
The middle gets a little bit just still good, a little bit exposition heavy, a little bit, less exciting, which is fine because, how books work. But that's how I landed on an 8 out of 10 for this issue. Really, really good, but yeah.
No, for sure. I'm that half step above you. I gave this an 8.5. Between this and Ain't No Grave, I'm so excited for these two books.
I am
sheer
too.
Sustenance. You are so correct.
I am too. No, I am super excited for Heartpiercer going forward. I'm also really excited that on that splash page it says Volume 1, which makes me
Right?
think that this might not be just a mini-series, which makes me a very excited lad. Especially because
Fingers
the fact that Gavin
crossed.
Smith was on TMNT for so long monthly, like, he
Mhm.
can do a monthly book. So,
And
yeah,
it's Dark
I'm
Horse.
very hopeful. Yeah, I'm very hopeful that this is going to just go.
Yes.
Which I would be so happy about. But
And
this is
because we're
absolutely
so
pull list
excited
rack if
for
that
it to
wasn't
go,
obvious.
certainly a pull list rack.
Yeah, official pull list rack.
Yes,
Fantastic.
yes.
Round of applause for the whole creative team on this. Good,
Absolutely.
great first issue.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of creatives, are we ready for the Creator Corner?
Let's do it!
All right, here we are in the Creator Corner, where we sit back, relax, talk about books, talk about being writers, talk about what we're submitting to. And surprise, surprise, Jay and I are both going to be submitting to the Museum of the Uncanny, the new anthology from Bad Neighbor Comics.
We are.
Yeah. If you would like to submit, it is still live. By the time this goes up, I think there will be 2 or 3 weeks left. Writers, you do need a full
I think
8-page
it should still be
script.
3 because it
I
only
think
went up
so.
like I think there should be over 3 weeks left on it.
Okay,
if I'm not
rad.
mistaken.
I don't
So,
think
yeah,
over
you should
3
have plenty of
weeks,
time.
but plenty of time. Writers, you'll need a full 8-page script, and artists, you'll need your portfolio to submit. I am very excited to submit to this anthology. We have both submitted to Bad Neighbor before their Fairy Tales from Mars anthology.
First anthology I ever submitted to, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
If it's the first one you submitted to, it's certainly the first one I submitted to.
I think it's the first I submitted to.
I think so, because I think that was back in 2022.
Yeah, and then it was in 2023 when I was like, I'm just going to submit to everything. And I submitted to so many in 2023. And then in 2024, there's been barely any. So it's just, way it goes. But
the way it goes. But we both submitted. Jay, do you want to give us just a quick rundown of what your submission was?
Yeah, it was like as I try to remember it to the best of my ability.
I think I could recount yours.
Yeah. No, but it was called The True Martians, and it was about like it was basically I tried to do Alice in Wonderland on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
So like there were these real Martians that were living deep in a crater beneath the Martians. I'm trying to remember like what was the actual like main plot of it, and I don't really remember. Like
because your main character,
it turned out the Martians were evil, and like they wanted to like kill or like eat or something like that all the surface Martians. And so I think the main character's name was Sammy because I wanted to basically put my little cousin into a comic.
Adorable.
So then I think Sammy's able to like get out and like seal it or something like that, and lock them away. She
saves the day in some way or another. It's worth mentioning the title was Fairy Tales from Mars. The concept of the book was fairy tales that a grandmother on Mars may tell to their grandchildren.
So I did Alice in Wonderland on Mars, and Katie, you want to talk about your like Tom and Jerry?
I mean that is pretty accurate.
It was so much fun.
I really liked the story. I wrote a story called Dust Devils, which is about these dust devils, which are devious little creatures that are born of lies, and the very breath you use when you lie twists and it like spins into little tornadoes. And so the main character of my story, she breaks some expensive thing or some important thing, and she starts lying about it, and these little dust devils come spinning out, and because Mars is like a dusty planet, I thought it'd be very cute, and they could wreak havoc until, she has to tell the truth, and then the dust devils are taken care of. So a little cautionary tale about lying, I suppose. But what I wanted to talk about with our submissions is that we actually edited each other's submissions.
We did. Yeah. Something you should probably have somebody do.
Oh, absolutely you should have somebody do. And so, unfortunately, the document where I left comments on Jay's stuff, I might have deleted somehow. Oops.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago.
I still have your message, though, that, like, covered, like, in the general
my word vomit.
But yeah, and then, Katie still has my full notes to her, which I haven't actually really looked at, which is
I hadn't looked
really
at
fun.
until 5 minutes ago.
But if I remember like some of the general vibe of it.
No, that's so fair. I did
If
not
I
reread
remember
yours
correctly.
either. I didn't even reread
Yeah.
mine. I just read your comments. So I would love to either toss it to you
Yeah,
if you're reading, I
yeah.
can
I'm remembering now. You're
ramble.
so. Yeah. Do you want me to kind of throw out
So
like
I
some of the
think
stuff, or do you want to talk about the
the
stuff that I said to you?
I think that the
Because
comments are
like,
less important than the
yeah, the
process of leaving
general.
comments.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So the like I'm gonna talk like not in like the specifics to your story, but like kind of what the comments mean, or like
yeah, exactly.
something that
What
I think
you're
is gonna be
looking
applicable.
for.
A lot of my comments to you, from what I'm remembering and looking at it, were about like clarity things. Because I
Mhm.
found your script, I thought it was going to be confusing to um, like a submission reader, like not to an art, like to a submission reader, because a lot of your thing was based around like words physically existing in like a twister and stuff,
Yeah.
and you never really clarified that directly. And so I was like, reading this, I don't think that's clear, and I think there's a lot of chance people are just gonna like think you're being like fanciful in your words or stuff, or like not quite get what you're getting at. So
Me?
a lot of it was
Fanciful in
behind,
my
and
words?
it's funny because it was actually very similar to comments that I left for another friend who just sent me their submission for the Museum of the Uncanny, and a lot of it, and I think this is often one of the things I mainly look for when I'm editing friends, is like stuff where I'm just like, is this going to be clear to the person reading the submission? Because
Mhm.
obviously things are more clear to you than they are to other people because you know what you're thinking and what you're doing. So yeah, I think most of my notes for Katie mainly revolved around like, I don't think the wording here is clear to what you actually are trying to get
Mhm.
across.
No, and you
Um,
also, I think you have a really good eye for paneling. I
mm,
think that I do a pretty good job with what I want in a panel. Like, I know how I want a panel composed, but I think you do a
yeah.
very good job of, like, actually breaking a page down, which is a very
Yeah.
valuable skill, as a comic
I've
writer,
drawn
writing panels
I've
too.
drawn pages for artists a couple of times where I'm like, can you do this? I want like this. I try not to do that too much because some artists do not like that. But yeah, no, I especially though the other thing was like this was pretty early into you rating comics. I think
Yes,
like
yeah.
this was very
So
early
I
after
think
you had made the jump over.
2021 was mostly
Yeah.
novels, and then 2022 is when I
Yeah, so
really
I
started
think
going on
the other
comics.
comment I think I made to you, if I remember correctly, was like, Kate, this is an anthology. You can have more than like 4 panels on a page. Like, push, like, you can do more. Like, Katie was very much. I remember we were going back and forth a lot with this, but she was terrified to push the panel count on a page. I was like, you can go a little bit more, but
In my
yeah,
defense, I think that we are both extremes because I think you had like 12 panels per page in
I
yours.
had not, but I had a lot on like
You
one of
had
the
a couple
pages
of
because I was
really,
pushing it.
really
Yeah,
dense
yeah, 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 yeah.
pages for sure.
Yeah, I think I ended up with like an average of like 6. But
Which
yeah,
is not
I
bad at
still had
all.
one page
But
that ended with 8, which isn't too bad. But yeah, I had to cut some stuff. But yeah, oh yeah, no, it was high. It was probably like a 7 panel average, which is definitely high.
yeah,
Yeah, I was definitely to the extreme with this
but
one
I
because
was
it was one of the
definitely
first
to the
anthology
extreme
stories
in
I
the
read.
other way.
Yes, yes.
Because I think I made the mistake of like obviously the way to learn how to write comics is to read comics. And I
Yeah,
started going through and being like, okay, just flipping to random pages and counting the panels. And a lot of like modern and especially like big two comics, they'll have very creative page layouts where it's like, okay, this is
yeah.
technically one panel, but it's
Yeah, I
also
feel
like a
that was something
professional
I do.
artist and,
That's
and
honestly
stuff like
something I
that.
still do sometimes. But I feel like you'll like. I feel like that for me anyway. Usually it goes where like I'll read a book and I'll be like, yeah, that probably only had like 4 panels per page or 5, and then you actually start counting. You're like, no, this had like 6 or 7 on nearly every page.
Oh yeah, no, and
Um,
that's because those are the pages that you're flipping through and you're like, oh, I'm looking for the art. I'm looking for well, there we go. There's art happening, which obviously
yeah,
art is
yeah, yeah.
happening on every page. But I
Art's
think that was
happening.
one of my fatal flaws.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so yeah, you are very good when editing at looking at those panel breakdowns, and I think that's a very
Yeah.
valuable
I think
skill
you were
that you
great though. Like what I really need you were doing is like you were giving me a lot of like the cuttable stuff where you're like this
have.
just isn't like this does not need to exist in this comic. Like I think you told me to cut like the entire first page. If I'm
I
not
think I
mistaken.
did
It
too,
was like
yeah.
your
And I don't
note.
think that's the first time I've said that about. I think I might have said that about something that hasn't come out. I think I might have, at the very least, told you to parse down. Yeah.
Oh, it took me a second.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Honestly, good advice. There's a lot of times, and like, don't just go around the book. There's a lot of times, and if you don't have somebody edit your thing, maybe just tell this to yourself and then see if it applies. There's a lot of times where you can cut the entire first page or like half of the first page. Especially in an anthology, the idea of start as late in the story as you can is a super good one. And
Incredibly
Katie
valuable.
is often the voice of that for me, because a lot of times I'll start the story somewhere and then like I find the story a page later and it's like, that doesn't need to be there.
It's like,
and
I already wrote it, that it needs to stay.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Well, that's honestly little piece of like, I don't need to do it anymore because I think I've gotten much better with accepting cutting things. But something that I did literally during Fairy Tales from Mars, because I have the doc here for it, is I had a doc called Cut Bits, so I could like Control X and paste it in there, because I think that's something that can make it much easier to cut things. Like if I wanted it later, it's there. The other thing I'll say is just make a copy, like go draft one, make a copy, and then go, okay, now I can cut and change as much as I want, and then draft one's still there, and I'll have draft two. But yeah, why don't you what else did you kind of think about during the editing process of this, Katie?
I think my big thing, because I've kind of always been someone people are like, hey, will you edit my paper, please? That's literally how me and my current roommate stayed friends all through college after high school, because I was editing their papers. The big thing really is just be so aggressive with your edits, because you're not actually changing anything. You are making suggestions. And every time I send you edits on something, I think I always include a disclaimer of like, these are just suggestions. These are like full brainstorms.
I feel like you also usually start before. I think you stopped doing it because I always gave you the same answer. But you used to, before you'd edit, you'd ask me the question like, "How mean do you want me to be on a scale of 1 to 10?" Yeah. And I'd usually say 9. It was like, I want you to be really mean, but don't be like, excessively mean for no reason.
I will just attack your
yeah, like don't attack my like don't be like, you're a shit, right? But anything below that is acceptable.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that it's really, because whether or not someone takes your edits, one, is not an attack on you as the person editing, obviously. But two, it's also like, you want them to have as much to chew on as possible, because you're essentially 100%. Being a second set of eyes. And if someone wants you to edit your thing, they want to know your thoughts. That's why they're asking you to edit their thing.
Yeah.
Very stupid
and odds
story,
are they're going to ignore or say no to a large amount of comments or ideas. So if you have less, then they're going to do less. Yeah. Like if you leave, I don't know, 4 comments per page, we'll say, across like a 8-page story, 32 notes, and, they take, say, we'll say 40% of your notes, which is probably high. We'll say they take 40% of your notes or whatever. Or we'll say 25%.
It's fine.
25% of your notes. If you're doing 4 per page, they're going to take 8 notes. If you're doing, 1 per page, they're going to take 2 notes.
Yeah.
Like that is a huge difference in the amount of things. But yeah, I think the thing is different, like between straight taking notes. Like I'd say, in terms of straight taking notes, you probably take like 10%, if that. But in terms of notes that like spur you to think about something and change it, like that's a higher percentage, because there's a higher percentage where you go like, okay, clearly there was a problem here, and you leave it. But in terms of like straight up, Katie gives me an idea and I do it exactly, not a super high percentage. Happens sometimes. Happens in a book that's going to hopefully come out at some point. I think the same book you were talking about, the first page thing. But you gave an idea funny enough, for paneling on a page. And I took that directly and I sent it to the artist and I was like, you think this can be done? And the artist was like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, okay, we'll do exactly what Katie said. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I think that just being incredibly verbose in your edits, like as someone who's received my edits, there are some where I just highlight something and I just say cut. With obviously the knowledge that it's like, you should probably cut this. But there are often notes where I'll highlight something and I'll say, this doesn't feel right, and this is why it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you are trying to get someone to change, you should explain why. Which I think is really, really big. Especially if you're also a writer and you understand why things aren't feeling right. Like one of the comments you left on Dust Devils is that the characters didn't have a lot of personality in their dialogue, and
Mm.
it's not just a it wasn't just, hey, your characters all sound the same. It was, hey, your characters don't have a lot of personality in their dialogue, and I think that with the cartoony vibe you're going for, you can really lean into that tone, and it just makes it such a more insightful and valuable comment than just,
Yeah.
I didn't like this, or here's a
Yeah.
problem.
Let's throw it the other way, because like one of the things you had, and I think one of the notes that I took, because this was earlier, I really did not take a lot on this because I was a dumb idiot who didn't want to actually put any effort in to change my story. But you talked about the ending of the book, and instead of being like, the ending doesn't work or the ending's bad or whatever, you went like, okay, it's a little weird that she just gets pardoned and gets to leave at the end, and that's anticlimactic and stupid. You didn't say stupid. You said it had a lack of tension. And then, and then you like gave kind of an alternate feel, like, well, what if she can kind of, like sunlight comes through and then she can come out. And I didn't take that exactly, but I ended up using that idea of like, okay, how do I do an escape scene? And then like I don't think I cut the full first page, but I cut down the first page and then like shifted things, so I was able to then fit like an escape chase scene at the end. And that came from you giving not just a note of the ending's bad, or you should do this instead of an ending, where I probably would have went, no, fuck you. But you gave like why you didn't like the ending and what you thought needed to change, and that led me down building out a new ending that kind of came from that. So yeah.
No, and that's the
you're
thing,
absolutely
is
correct,
that
is the point.
it's also, I am
with
such
it.
a like talker. Like, I love talking through ideas. Just a couple weeks ago, Jay and I started brainstorming for a comic when we were just playing video games. It was like 3 hours of us just talking through this
More
idea.
than that, because we got on at like 11 or something. We went until 3 a.m. We
Yeah.
went until 3 a.m. planning out a comic that we are now making, which we'll let you all know when the first official Script Heroes comic is actually maybe happening. But yeah, like, anyway, continue.
But yeah, so
sorry.
doing edits where you offer ideas, where you brainstorm what could go somewhere, what the story could look like, it's super valuable, because having that kind of, you're not just bouncing off a brick wall. Then you're very much kind of working together to build out ideas. And I feel like there might be a sort of, at least when I started editing people's stuff, especially their creative stuff, I feel like I had a real kind of reluctance to do that, because I'm like, it's your creative thing. I don't want to like get in the way of what you're trying to do. But like, if they're asking you to edit, they're asking for your input.
Yeah. And there's like, I'm gonna try to draw the line, because it's a very fuzzy line.
Oh yeah,
there's certainly a line. I'm gonna try to draw the line right here, and I think where it differs is like, there's the editing and the brainstorming and stuff, and like where it works is when you are, everything you're saying is direct feedback, or something on something that is there, as in based on this idea or based on this thing, like maybe change that, like if it's either a change or like put more of this or put less of it. Where it becomes too far is when you kind of go off and just start writing your own thing with the thing. When
very
you're like,
much so.
Based on your idea, with nothing that you have, based on your idea, this is how it should be written. And that's where it's kind of like over, and I've certainly experienced that a couple times, where people just start like, it's like, and this is how it should happen, and this is how it should be structured, and this is actually the story that I would tell, and the story that you're telling, I don't think works as well as the story that I think you should tell. And it's like, okay,
then go tell that story.
Yeah, like, and I've even like I had that happen once with a friend, where like they went on that, and I literally went like, okay, I'm gonna put pause on that idea for a while, because that just like gave me such a bad like vibe, and the fact that then I was just like, you just went and gave me like a whole story, and now I don't want to think that I'm like taking your story, in what I'm doing. So it like turned me off of that idea so much that I ended up kind of just going like, okay, I'm gonna put that away for a bit, because But anyway, so that's the line, I think. Like, keep yourself focused on their work, and like changes, expansions, cuts.
And that's why I think focusing on moments is a really good thing. Like, focusing on the end of the story, like this sequence that happens, here's why I don't think this works, is much better than, okay, so I read your story, and because of the way that it starts, here's how the story should be.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of starting very narrow in.
Yeah. And yeah, like, every now and then a sweeping comment about the whole story will make some sense of, like, there's too many captions, or, the captions feel a little bit. But I think you're absolutely right that should, usually a sweeping comment should come through, like, you just making that comment directly X number of times, and then it becomes a sweeping comment, if that makes sense. Like, if reading a whole story and then, like, thinking about it as a whole and then delivering advice tends to work worse than, like, trying to actually break it down.
Yeah, doing your line readings.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But yes.
Anything else you want to hit on?
No. Submissions are open for the Museum of the Uncanny.
They are.
If you write a pitch, if you're a writer and you write a pitch or a script, you should have someone else read it. And if someone asks you to read their script, 1, they should also read yours. And 2, keep these things in mind. Because I love editing. Honestly, I love editing more than I love writing. So it's I think there's just a lot of good to be had there. And it makes everyone's stuff better. But, always do it with consent. Use the scale that Jay referenced, 1 to 10 scale, is like, how intense do you want me to be with my comments? Like, how granular would you like me to be?
if you're doing it for a friend, I think it's the Katie, but I think that's a good thing to ask, especially if it's not somebody you've done it with a lot. If you're coming in, like, because there's some people who want, like, an eye to make sure that they didn't actually fuck anything up, or that there's nothing big glaring that doesn't make sense or whatever. And then you come in and you're, like, line reading it, and they're like, oh.
So now I have to start over?
Yeah, so, like, just make sure that you figure out the person. Eventually you'll get very comfortable with it.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Jay, you're stupid. Your ideas are bad.
Thank you.
That's a lie.
I appreciate that.
I can't even say it.
I appreciate that.
No, my heart hurts.
I appreciate that.
Jay, you're a very smart boy. You have a wonderful work ethic. And you're very creative and smart.
The True Martians was pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was
dense. Is what I'll say.
It was dense. Yeah, it was dense. Yeah. That I'll give a learning moment from both of our stories here, because I think we had opposite problems.
Yes.
And you can say I think my story was what they were looking for, but it was bad, so they wouldn't want it. I'm not sure your story was what they were looking for with the prompt, but I thought it was really, really good.
Which is always my problem.
Those are sometimes the things happen with, like, and they're just a little more. Really try to key in on a prompt when you're talking about an anthology, especially if you have information on the publisher and what kinds of things they typically like. Because sometimes you can find, like, all the stories in their last anthology were surrealist stuff. They like surrealist stuff. Do something surrealist, maybe. So, like, teaching moment there.
Good.
And don't write things that suck like I did for it, because that never works.
Except for everyone who has ever been chosen over us, all of their stuff sucked. So I don't know how it works.
Correct.
Clearly,
yeah.
Just kidding.
And we'll post Katie's Dust Devil story somewhere for you all to look at, because that's a good anthology story.
I'm sorry, are we not going to post yours?
No, because it's a bad anthology story. They should not be. They should not be looking up to that.
Wants to figure out what our edits were.
No, we're not.
In any case,
anywhere. Unless somebody wants to pay us money, we'll put them on a Patreon, and you all can pay us the pay. No.
There you go. What level are you going to back the Script Heroes Patreon?
Yeah. Do we want to? We have once again forgotten to look at our polls for next week.
Let's close out the Creator Corner, and then we'll talk about our polls. What a wonderful Creator Corner! We love the Creator Corner here. Thanks for hanging with us. I know that was a bit of a long one, going through all those Eisners. We tried to be more succinct with the polls in Creator Corner, but as always, are terrible at that.
Yeah.
But speaking of polls, we've got a weird little poll list for next week.
We do.
Yeah.
Second time ever we're going to have a TPB on our poll list.
Exactly. Unbearing the lead here,
Hound.
Yeah. From Magcave.
And the first time not an OGN. This is actually going to be a collected edition on our poll list, which is interesting.
So we are going to be talking about Void Rivals. I think it's number 9, right?
I believe that is correct.
Rook Exodus, number 2. So
very
psyched
excited
for that, right?
Yes.
And then coming out next week also is the trade for Edenwood, which I believe is Tony S. Daniels' book, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've both been meaning to read it. We've talked about it multiple times. We've both been meaning to read it, I think, for a while, and then just haven't.
Yeah,
So doing it
big
for the
ol'
podcast when the
Noctera
trade comes
fans.
out is going to be a good move. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, so that's going to be on the pull list rec for next week.
Yes. But also, this coming Saturday, you can join us for another Massiverse bonus episode as we continue to go down the Massiverse. We might be going slower than new books are coming out, so
yeah,
that's
we'll catch
great.
up. It'll
We're
be fun.
Doing Inferno, Girl, Red, and the first supermassive one shot.
Yeah, I think it's like the 2022 one or something. 2021.
Yeah, it's the first one. It's whatever the first one is.
Yes.
I did not check the year, which is why I was just gonna go with the first one. That's fair. But yeah, so if you're interested in continuing our journey with us through the Massiverse, check that out. I'm gonna force Katie to finish Radiant Black Volume 2 before that because she still hasn't.
Here's the thing: if I don't finish something in one sitting, I'm bad at finishing it.
I know, that's why I'm gonna force you.
I appreciate.
I'm probably gonna reread Volume 2 of Radiant Black anyway, just so like I'm up to date on the Massiverse in my head, you know. But in any case, that's what we have coming up, and we'll see you all next week. Comic Geeks.
It's the phrase that my speech therapist had me used, and when I would say my sister's name is Sarah, she would say, "No, Katie, your sister's name isn't Sarah, it's Sarah." It was very traumatic, obviously.
You have such resentment